Hey guys, welcome back to Andy's Dinosaur Reviews, and today we are back with another round of Mattel Jurassic World figures, but we've got some more Mighty Little Biters. This is Wave 4, I think, if I'm remembering correctly. So, again, some pretty cool stuff. We actually have some new species to the line, which is definitely fun, and one repeat species, as we've got the Quetzalcoatlus and Dilophosaurus, which are new, and then we have the Spinosaurus in a new color variant, which is definitely not new. So, again, pretty cool to have some new ones, especially the Quetzalcoatlus, because, again, it's a pretty darn cool-looking figure, and focus does kind of have, like, that Jurassic World Rebirth sort of a look as far as the sculpt goes, not a whole lot as far as, like, the paint goes, but, again, you also have the Spino and then the Dilophosaurus. The packaging is pretty much the same as it usually is, and you can see the full wave again with the Quetzalcoatlus. You also have the other two that we have here, so that means we have the full wave, and I have to give a massive thank you, whoa, knocking it over, massive thank you and shout out to Plush Boy Q, who was the one that was actually awesome enough to help me find these and get them sent over, because I actually do not have any of these near me anymore. Like, I have not seen a single store that has these figures in a very long time, so unfortunately they're pretty much non-existent here, and he was able to find these, I think, at Meijer, if I remember correctly. So again, if you happen to have one of those stores near you, you've got a pretty good chance of finding these, and if you're like me and you're stuck with like Walmarts and Targets and all of the standard generic stuff, you're going to have trouble finding them, just like I am, most likely. I can't say that for sure, because some stores are better than others. But let's go ahead, pop these out of the boxes, and check them out. So here are each and every one of the newest wave of Mighty Little Biters. So we're just going to put them off to the side because it's not all that important to look at them quickly standing there. We'll just jump straight to a closer look, and you can see the Dilophosaurus looks pretty cool. Pretty much looking very similar to the older Snap Squad versions of the Dilophosaurus. Again, when it comes to the overall design, these guys follow a similar trend with very stylized looks, larger heads and stuff like that. The fine detail on the Dilophosaurus does look really nice, and it looks really crisp on top of that. It's got a good bit of different varying sizes of scales, which definitely look good. We could see the nostrils right there, the eyes sculpted out. The eyes are painted with a really nice bright yellow and then given a black pupil, and they do also feature a gloss coat, which again gives them that kind of realistic shine. And I always love that, even though Mattel does skimp out in some aspects of their figures, they always add like a nice gloss coat to the eyes, as well as usually a gloss coat to the mouth, and that does add at least some realism. Inside the mouth you can see a nice pinkish tone. We can also see a really nicely sculpted tongue and some detail on the upper side of the inside of the mouth, as well as the skin kind of stretching, and there's that nice gloss coat I was just mentioning. We also have the teeth sculpted out, and again, they obviously get pretty large and impressive as you open that mouth. They are colored with like an off-white bordering on a light yellow, but more so an off-white, and they also have that nice gloss coat. And we can see when we open that mouth, the eye goes crazy, and now we've got a pink with all sorts of kind of blood vessels and everything there in the eye, as well as again the yellow and the black pupil, making it look like our Dilophosaurus has not slept a wink in a very long time. As you move over to the other side, you can see it's pretty much the same thing. There is also a speckling I can see, kind of like a blue speckling that's showing up here throughout the face of the figure a little bit. Up in the crests, we do have a very nice red-orange tone, which definitely shines quite nicely in comparison to the greenish tone of the body. The texturing of the actual crest is a little muted, but it looks pretty much, you know, like your standard stuff. As you move back into the frill is actually really nicely sculpted. It's, for the most part, a greenish tone like the rest of the body, but as you move back toward the edges of the frill, you do have an orangish tone back there. And then we do also have this light tone here for the lower jaw, but that light tone ends in the lower jaw. It doesn't run down along the underside at all, unfortunately. As you move down, though, you can see the arms again sculpted out, held into the body. No nail paint on these figures at all. I used to think it would be funny whenever the like Snap Squads and stuff would have nail paint, because it's like weird that they would have nail paint, but then the mainline figures for the most part are always missing nail paint. But as you can see, unfortunately, I said that way too many times because Mattel took that advice and just cut the nail paint off from these guys as well. But you can overall take a look at the sculpt and see that it is pretty much highly detailed in every area that you look. Not much in the way of paintwork or anything, unfortunately. I remember with like the Snap Squads, they would have a little extra color usually moving along the back as time goes on. In most areas of Mattel and the Jurassic World line, the paintwork becomes more and more scarce, and obviously that's the same case when it comes to the mighty little biters in comparison to like older Snap Squads. But the foot sculpt and everything looks pretty decent, so that's a fairly fun figure, and you know, definitely a decent looking version of the Dilophosaurus to add to the mighty little biters line. Then we've got the Spino. Now the Spinosaurus here is the same sculpt as the previous Spinosaurus, so this is just strictly a repaint. And again, I really like this random little tooth that sticks up on each side. I remember there was a point in time where people were like thinking that maybe that would be something related to the rebirth Spinosaurus, and like, you know, maybe that's just an early look at what it's going to look like. And as it turns out, it was not at all, but still a fun little addition to this figure. But for the most part, we have a gray for the top of the head, and then a light, sort of a tan for the lower jaw. You have a light yellow for the eye and a black pupil. Definitely a lot lighter of a yellow than what we had seen on the Dilophosaurus. Inside the mouth, we of course have a very nice pinkish tone with a gorgeous gloss coat in there, and again, a very nicely textured tongue, as you usually find. The teeth are really held into the center of the mouth because this one's got that kind of long, thin snout that you would see on a Spino. The teeth, again, have a light, sort of off-white tone, pretty much the same tone of color I think that we had seen on the Dilophosaurus. And of course, when you move the mouth into an open position, you can see that the eyes again have like a pinkish tone, very bloodshot with all sorts of blood vessels and stuff, and then again the little light yellow area and the black pupil. And then as you move down along the back of the body, you see more of that green following along the back of the neck right there, as well as a little bit more. Actually, I think I said before it was a gray. Like when you look at it right here, I don't know how it looks on camera, but in person it almost looks gray. But now that I'm looking at it, it's actually a very interesting tone of green. It's like almost bordering on a gray, but also a little bit green. And then you have a slightly different shade of green that overtakes the top of the sail and just kind of patterns down. So pretty cool looking version of the Spino. Pretty fun repaint. Nothing overly flashy or crazy, but decent for what it is. And then we have the Quetzalcoatlus, which again is a brand new sculpt to the line. Nice new species. And we have the beak sculpted out. We could see the nostrils, some nice fine detail within the beak, as well as that little like area, that little crest on the beak that you see on this pterosaur. I like the colors of this one where we have the black and then that kind of bluish tone, and how the black sort of like breaks up and kind of speckles in here and there into the bluish tone. I really quite like that. I can also see like pycnofibers and stuff picking up throughout the figure, especially up here on the top of the head, which is definitely a nice touch. We again have a yellow eye, but somehow this one's more like bordering on an orange almost, but somehow again a different shade of yellow. So each figure has a yellow eye, but all different shades. We can see again a black pupil for the figure. We also have kind of like an orangish brown for the lower jaw, and then as you lead back again, basically just the bluish tone moving through the rest of the figure. But again, the detail looks pretty nice, especially in like the area of the beak. It's fairly smoothed out, but does still have some texturing to it, which looks cool. And as you move further back, you again pick up like some pycnofibers leading back into the back of the head. You do have that little area, like a little crest of pycnofibers and stuff there on the back of the head, almost feathers and stuff back there. And as we lead down through the body, the entire body is pretty much coated in those pycnofibers. You do have a little tiny tail out there at the end. Again, some decently sculpted wings as we move back around the front. You can see the skin texture of the wings looks really good. There's also some wrinkles and creases considering the pterosaur is in a standing position, so you would definitely expect there to be some wrinkling and creasing right there, which again is a nice touch. You move down, you can see the claws and everything unpainted. They kind of have a gloss coat, but not really. We also see a nice speckling on this one, just like we had seen on the Dilophosaurus, but this time with a black for the speckling. The legs, oddly enough, almost look like they should articulate, but they are not. But you can see a seam right there. Like, I didn't notice that on the others, but this one does actually have a seam for the legs, making it look like it has articulation. I wish these figures did. It would be nice to have like arm, or in this case wing articulation, or legs or something, but it is what it is. They all basically just have jaw and neck articulation, and that's pretty much it. We can see the feet on the underside, a little bit of skin moving along the underbelly of our Quetzalcoatlus. Again, the claws unpainted for the feet. The body is a little bit flexible, especially in the legs. The legs are actually just a straight up rubber. I don't remember if the others were like that. No, the others are definitely a harder material compared to the softer, more flexible legs of the pterosaur. But again, pretty cool looking. And then once we open the mouth, we can see again a pinkish tone for the inside of the mouth. The teeth on this are crazy because again, it just looks pretty darn mental with its mouth open like this. But also, again, Quetzalcoatlus did not have teeth, so kind of making this figure even more ridiculous somehow with those crazy teeth on it. But the teeth are more of a yellow on this one compared to the off-white that we had seen on the others. And then for the eye, again, it is now a green with the yellow in there and then the black pupil. So you can see how that kind of just switches as you open the mouth. And again, the figures are pretty cool. They definitely have a fairly fun action feature, which you can see. Actually, I guess I should readjust the camera. If you are unfamiliar with these figures, you can see that they are basically, again, very angry versions of these species. And again, there is the Dilophosaurus action feature, looking very angry as well. And then the Spinosaurus, again, also quite angry. Again, that hence the name Mighty Little Biters. But I think that's really all we need to do because, of course, they are the same size as all of the other Mighty Little Biters. No need to measure them or do comparisons or anything like that because we are very well aware of the size of these figures. But they are pretty cool. Again, I actually really quite enjoy this line much more than the Wild Pop-Ups. I think these are way cooler. The only thing they're really lacking would be any form of articulation in the body, which I think would definitely make them more fun. But even without it, they are still, in my opinion, a step up from those Wild Pop-Ups we had a ways back, and they are still pretty cool. And there's so many more species that Mattel could introduce into this line before they move on to something else and something new. And I actually think we're getting a Ceratosaurus at some point soon in this line, so definitely looking forward to that. But again, if you are interested in these, as I said, my buddy found these, I believe, at Meijer, and I know other people have found them at Meijer as well, so check your local store if you have one. If not, unfortunately, you might have to wait it out and see if maybe they show up at a different store or buy them on eBay or something, because I really have no idea where you can buy these online other than like eBay and Mercari and places like that. But they are pretty fun, and if you can find them, pick them up. And of course, like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next review. Thanks for watching.